Welcome back. Now, Justice Ileoje Endenche of a High Court at the Federal Capital Territory in Abuja, Nigeria, has restrained the federal government and 27 listed commercial banks from suspending, stopping, extending, or interfering with the new currency terminal date of 10th of February, which of course is this Friday, or issuing any directive contrary to the date. Also restrained were the President Muhammadu Buhari, Central Bank of Nigeria, Governor, CBN, Governor, of course, Godwin Emefiele, and, of course, others that are in that suit. But here are some of the facts that we'll be talking about this morning as we are joined by business analyst Bolahon Olojide. Good morning, Mr. Olojide. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
Interesting times in Nigeria, and like I said a few weeks ago, that this is about the first time that we're seeing a few days to the elections, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot being done by the ruling party or anybody in government to ease the suffering of Nigerians. A lot of times they fake it. You know, if you remember in 2014 elections, the government then reduced the pump price of exactly. Yes. But now it doesn't seem like there's any effort, you know, at all to ease the suffering. Nigerians are struggling to get their own Naira notes. Nigerians are struggling to get petrol. None of the issues that came with the pandemic, the economic hardship has been reduced. It's actually gotten worse now. So let's start with talking about that. Is that what we're seeing? Is it could it not be helped, or does it seem like it's an intentional hardship that is being placed on Nigerians?
I'm not so sure it's an intentional hardship. Things went wrong from my own perspective. So if you take the cash light or cashless policy, as the case may be, there's nothing exactly wrong about cashless or cash light policy.
Yes.
But we have all seen how the implementation of that policy went, such that it created hardship for the people. Now, you mentioned the case of a ruling party. The ruling party is most unlikely to want to create hardship deliberately because it knows it will have an implication for how it influences people at the poll.
Yes.
So even if it finds itself in a serious situation like it has, it should retrace its steps, or it will likely want to retrace its steps and see how it can make things easier for the people. On the fuel side of things, I think that was last week, we heard the president when he said, look, there's a committee which he himself as the Minister of Petroleum and the Commander-in-Chief and President will chair to make things happen. On the currency as well, we have seen an extension which happened after the CBN governor met with him. And then after the governor met with him again on that same currency, he said, look, give me 7 days and let me make a decision on it. So apparently, there is a willingness on one side to want to take a look at these problems and probably solve them, because that is the whole essence of government.
Yes.
The people you are governing must not be unhappy. Whatever you do that makes them unhappy, it behoves on you to solve that problem. So how effective has these steps been taken been? That's what we now need to question. I mean, as early as 6:30 today, I've seen people at the ATM sitting down, waiting. To, so apparently there's still a problem.
Terrible size. But now let's talk about there's a court ruling, of course, preventing the president, of course, the CBN governor also from extending the deadline further than February 10th. Do you expect that or do you think that there should be an extension? You've said, that of course the process, by which we try to, redesign the currency and make these changes wasn't as smooth as it should have been. CBN maybe could have done better. Do you think in the face of the upcoming elections on the 25th of February, that the CBN maybe should have a rethink and push the deadline further than the 10th of February?
A rethink, there's a court injunction stopping them from having this rethink anyway. However, this is what I see in that space. Number one, we did not start this very well because we wrapped a monetary policy around politics. A monetary policy should have been separate
from politics.
But we did that. And the anchor person, the CBN governor himself, is not exactly apolitical. He has been known to be a Katari member. He wanted to contest presidency. So all those issues will play out in how he is perceived. Is he perceived as a neutral person, or is he perceived as someone who could be politically involved in what will have ordinarily been a monetary policy? However, come to the policy in itself. The question is, what will justify this extension? What will justify it is to say, oh, the hardship has remained. But even if the hardship remained, if you extend it, what we are currently doing is what we will still be doing, which means make the money available to the bank so that people can have access to transactional amount. We do not have to extend this policy to achieve that.
Yeah.
All that needs to happen is that on a continuous basis, CBN continues to make money available at the counter, at the ATMs, and people can have access to transactional amount of money. As far as the issue of returning the old note is concerned as well, we also do not need to extend the policy to achieve that, because already in our laws, after that closure date, the CBN still has an obligation to accept those old notes
currencies
over a few months after that. So what exactly will necessitate this extension? That's the question. Unless some people are just deliberately pushing for this policy to fail totally, it has partially failed already, or they just want a push of the election date.
All right. You're going to start this response, but we're going to take a break, after like 30 seconds. But the question I want to ask is, for those who are a little bit confused as to why there's a scarcity in the first place, the Central Bank of Nigeria itself has not been able to give a proper explanation as to why there's a scarcity of the new Naira notes. The banks, and the bank MDs, the bank managers, the POS operators, nobody can explain why there's a scarcity of the new Naira notes. Who do you think Nigerians should focus their attention, on? Because I've seen a video. You're going to respond to this after this break. I've seen a video of bank staff this morning jumping or scaling a fence to escape angry Nigerians on the other side. So who do you think the attention should be shifted or should be focused on, from Nigerians, and who is failing Nigerians at this time? Well, we'll get that response after the short break. Stay with us. It's still Election Countdown Nigeria. Welcome once again to Election Countdown Nigeria. Now, operations managers at banks have been fingered to be responsible for the scarcity of the new Naira notes at ATMs and banking halls. These types of stories have covered the headlines since last week following the introduction of the new Naira notes policy. Now, we've seen some people go naked even in banking halls, fights even happening at a polling station and, of course, ATM points. And a man was reported to have died in Delta State in the southern region of Nigeria. Now, our man, popularly called Professor Femi Adefisoye, took to the streets to seek the opinion of a few Nigerians on whether the election should be postponed. And here is what they had to say.
Election we hold or not. The first thing I will say is that there is no excess of producing new money. The old money we are using already is not out. You are still producing new money and you did not even bring it out for people to spend. So it's of no use bringing out, people are suffering, you are producing new money. It doesn't mean anything now. Even if the election will hold, people that have not eaten, will they be the ones to go out to go and vote for the leaders? It doesn't make any sense. So I see no reason why it should hold. Though.
I don't think. And I'm not in support to stop the 2023 election.
You hold it, or they must hold it. They should hold it. It must hold.
Honestly, even before all of this, I've always thought that the election was going to be moved because I don't see how feasible it is for it to happen on the 25th. Like, we're only how many days from the election, and see the state of the economy. See people everywhere, see queues. It's not possible. There's fuel queue, there's no lights in our houses, there's no cash. And how are people supposed to get to their polling units? If it continues like this, we'll barely see voters turn out to vote on the elections day.
Well, the election will still hold, but depends, my sister. It depends. I must be sincere. It depends.
Please, for my side, I believe through this thing that is happening now, everybody in Nigeria now, both old and young, we have already know who that we are going to vote for because of the situation. Just take a look of what is happening now, the cashless and everything. If you want to buy something, you will not see cash to buy it. And if you want to do transfer, before you get something, no. Yesterday, I just withdraw 4,000 Naira and I paid 700 Naira for 4,000 Naira.
Well, I don't know what the federal government and the CBN are planning. I don't know what is actually in their mind. But election is coming. They were claiming that some people are going to buy elections, some people are going to do this, and that was the reason why they want to change the money. But presently, There are some of these politicians that have this bundle of new notes in their houses.
And this is my point to say people should please go and vote. I have collected my PVC. I was advocating for that. I finally collected it. I've seen people also, my family members and friends, they were able to collect their own. And now this is our future is in our hands, basically. We've had 8 years of, I cannot say what it was, but we're looking forward to the next 4 to 8 years of, I don't know what this will be, right? But for us to be positive, at least we should be able to take our vote in our hands and then go out to vote.
And of course, there you have it, a cross-section of Nigerians sharing their views on the new and old currency and, of course, how it might affect the elections. But, of course, we're still here this morning with Mr. Bolahon Olojede. Now, back to the question that I asked earlier. Who do you think should be blamed for the chaos we're currently experiencing? The CBN, bank, managers, and, of course, operators at the bank, or, the Nigerian government generally?
What about the Nigerian people as well?
Or the Nigerian people?
Let's put everybody in the mix. Well, we'll start from the bankers. We have been scapegoating the banks. And part of what that is leading to are some of the videos we are seeing on the going viral now.
Yes.
In which we had bank staff jumping over the fence in certain instances. And when you pitch the banks against the people, you're going to have that kind of a situation. There is no doubt that some bank branches have behaved badly.
Yeah.
But do you know how many bank branches we have in Nigeria? Maybe about 5,500. So if 10 branches or 20 branches have behaved badly, it would be wrong to cut that across 5,500 branches and say the banks are the problem. The first question we must ask is, how much was provided to these banks? That one also, because there was a gap there, people have filled it with all sorts of numbers. Some people say, 30 million were being given to every branch every day. I even saw someone up that to 300 million to a branch. I saw a video yesterday, somebody said 2 billion in a particular branch. I said, what is the vault limit of this branch now? You think that banks are excited about keeping non-yielding assets in their vault? It doesn't happen this way. So number one, we need to stop scapegoating the banks. The problem we have at hand is bigger than painting the banks as the one that is the problem. So I remember the CBN governor mentioning a figure of, was it 800 and something billion? If you withdraw 2.1 trillion from an economy and you pump in 800 and something billion, and you're not even pumping it all at once. Yes. I mean, you can't pump it all at once. There's no doubt that there's a gap between those two numbers, and there will be a bit of scarcity which will ease out over a period of time. So the banks, where I think they come in is in the issue of stability of infrastructure. If you're saying people should stop using cash, they should go on the other channels. Those channels must work. They must be there. There have been a couple of banks that have been subject of all sorts of accusations in the last 1 week.
Yes.
You can't get transactions done. How will you not frustrate the cashless economy if you allow that to continue? So in the spirit of infrastructure, banks must step up the game. Make the availability, if it was 90% before, rev it up to 99.9, if possible, so that people can be comfortable. Then they also need to go into the trenches, the banks themselves. Look at construction workers. It's a difficult time for them because over the several decades, they are used to paying people in cash. Can't we go to this construction site, open the account for these people? In fact, take along, some cash to be able to pay them for the first time and say, oh, this is my bank. I have come here. I see your problem. We will open an account for all of you. But for today, we'll pay you in cash. But tomorrow, your money will be in your account. You try and withdraw it and let them try and withdraw it and they get the money. They will be happy.
Yes.
And we've moved on with all of that. But you have the politicians, and these are the biggest problem that we have in this space. You've seen the kind of suits that are going on. Some are on this direction, another is on another direction. So the politicians, in my opinion, are the biggest problem with this policy has. In fact, my advocacy right from the beginning is we should not allow the politicians to hijack this policy. But unfortunately, they found a gap, and that gap was the poor implementation at some point, and the cash in.
Can play on the emotions of Nigerians
and the road on it, and that. I won't be surprised if some of the things we're seeing on the internet now, circulating, scapegoating the banks and the rest of them, were actually sponsored by politicians because they want to kill this initiative.
I always take opportunities like this to remind people that the politicians didn't sue the Nigerian government for anything. not when ASU was on strike, for 8 months, not when, thousands and thousands of Nigerians have lost their lives in the last 8 years to bandits and kidnappers and the likes, not when, numerous failures of the Nigerian government to protect the Nigerian people and Nigerian property have occurred. There was no clamor by these politicians. There were no tears, there were no videos, there were no, court cases. Everybody was fine until, time for the elections. Now, how do you think this might affect the elections, generally? Aside the fact that, of course, like you mentioned, Nigerians might be a little frustrated at this time. It might, of course, affect, the direction of their voting, what their decisions are concerning vote. But will it affect what the normal picture of Nigeria's electoral process is like? Vote buying, to be precise.
Well, it might affect vote buying because vote buying are typically done with cash. If the cash is not available in the kind of quantities it used to be,
yes,
there will be some challenges. So, of course, because politicians are typically one step ahead of the voters anyway, we don't know what they're already planning, how they want to block that hope. But there is no doubt that will happen. It will constrain. I mean, imagine the fact that you take 2.1 trillion and you're releasing 800. That's already a big constraint on how much money is available at every stage, including even the politician. Of course, they may get priority, by virtue of their connection, but it is still limited. That is the reality. However, where I foresee problems are issues of logistics for INEC. So if the fuel is not available as it's supposed to be, and INEC still has to use internal transportation system. For example, in my poly unit, it's the yellow buses that bring election materials over the years. So if that yellow bus cannot get fuel, there'll be a problem. If he has to charge more than has been agreed because he has to buy fuel at 290 or 300, there will be issues. So it would be nice if we can as well, if the government can as well fix the issue of availability of fuel before that election. Let it be there. And the cash, if we continue to release the cash, make it available on the counter at the ATM over this period leading up to elections, I assure you, the average Nigerian will have transactional amount in their pocket before election time.
Just to remind Nigerians that a few weeks ago there were reports of the DSS, threatening arrest of the Central Bank of Nigeria governor on allegations of sponsoring terrorism or some of all that sort. But all of that has been put to rest. He's no longer a sponsor of terrorism for now, until it's needed again. But now, I also want to talk, before we, of course, talk about meet the candidates today, let's also talk about the president himself, President Muhammadu Buhari, and what you feel his reactions to some of all of this should be. I know it's a couple of days until he's, officially no longer president, maybe a couple of weeks or months before no longer president. So he might be a little relaxed at this point. But what do you think his reactions to all of this should be? And what has his body language shown in the last few weeks?
I believe he has a genuine intention to deliver a free and fair election. That I believe. And he has shown evidences of that right from election, the Electoral Act, to this issue of I don't want people to be able to buy vote. We've seen some of the interviews and we said, no, going back, nobody should be able to influence this voting. So that could be seen as a commitment. Also, he has shown a bit of commitment in the area of this fuel matter, though we have not seen the result, as well as the cashlight policy. So on his part, I think is genuinely interested in that. However, he has not also shown himself to be a politician and the rest. And that could count against him in several ways, because there are the real politicians who know how to manipulate the system, including possibly manipulating him as well.
Yes.
And that is where the danger lies. For example, in the cashlight policy, it looks to me like he might be in a quagmire right now. He's a bit confused. So he on one side, he doesn't want this policy to change. On the other side, he's under pressure. And guess what? Because of that poor implementation, the pressure is real and the underlying issues are real. You are the ruling party. If people are suffering under your ruling party because they can't get cash and you did not do anything about that, they will vote against your party.
Yes.
So it's in between the devil and the deep blue sea. And how he manages this issue over this short period will determine whether it will indeed have a legacy
Yes.
Of this free and fair election.
Final question, and this is the average Nigerian mentality concerning all of this. There is no petrol in filling stations. People are queuing for hours to buy, but black markets, sellers have. There is no money in the POS or ATMs rather. People are struggling and queuing for hours to withdraw their own Naira, but POS operators have money and are charging 10 to 20 to even 30% per withdrawal. So talk about that.
When you mentioned who should we blame the other time, I said maybe we should
Nigerian
put the people as well, because there is exploitation going on at every level. It's as if Nigerians we just wait for our own opportunity to milk the system, and whenever it presents itself, we do not hesitate. So we are seeing levels of that with the POS operators. However, there are also things that are enabling this.
Yes.
About a week ago, 2 Sundays ago, actually, I was at a party. Right at the entrance of the party, there were people holding up the same notes that we cannot see and selling it at some crazy profits right there. Then there are also people buying.
Yeah.
So the question is, it involves all of us. And if this is going to progress, then we need to do something. I see a bank take an initiative today. The bank is saying, look, come and open an account. I will even give you free cards. He said, I will not charge you for any transfer you made between this particular period and February 18 or thereabout. Those are the kind of positive steps that all of us as stakeholders need to start thinking about. The POS guy can say, look, I can make this profit instead of this and accommodate the people. Let them have access to this money. So all of us will need to be involved if we really want to solve this problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Quick reminder to Nigerians that for the first time, in my time as a Nigerian in my history, Nigerians do not have access to their own Naira. And of course, it's one of the most fascinating things that we've seen in the build-up to any elections in Nigeria's history. And of course, I'm hoping that some of all these things maybe are things that you consider when you go to the polls to vote either of the persons contesting for elections. Now, let's quickly share with you what, of course, our candidate for the day is. As always, we share with you one candidate who is contesting president of Nigeria. For today, we are speaking about Prince Abdul Malik Ado Ibrahim, the candidate of the Young Progressives Party, YPP. Of course, you look at the logo of the YPP, it's a sketch of Nigeria's map and a gate widely opened with a little branch or tree in the middle, someone's holding it. Prince Abdul Malik Ado Ibrahim was born on the 22nd of December 1963 into the Atta royal family of Ibira land, Kogi State, Nigeria. He is the founder of the Reset Nigeria Initiative, an advocacy movement for good governance, citizen inclusivity, and the overall betterment of Nigeria. And he is the presidential standard bearer of the Young Progressive Party, YPP, in the forthcoming February 25th elections. Now, let's talk about his manifesto. He claims that he has expansive solutions to Nigeria's perennial crisis and believes that Nigeria needs a builder, a visionary, a thinker, and a global citizen. If elected, he said he will be a CEO of Nigeria, building the nation rather than being a politician who's there to service his party and his personal ambitions. According to Prince Malik, a lot of harm has been done to the country in the last few weeks, ranging from the queues at petrol stations for premium motor spirits, electricity breakdown and the likes, and of course, also talking about the Naira. And he has pledged to run a government that will be the bedrock of service to humanity if elected in 2023. And that is it for the candidate of the YPP. And I hope that some of these persons might also be options for Nigerians as they go to the polls. A quick reminder that everyone should please go and get your PVCs. We're still having conversations about INEC and the ability to let Nigerians to vote, even if you don't have the actual permanent voter's card. Because from the mock elections, we saw that VIN numbers, facial recognition, fingerprints were all enough to get a person accredited. So we'll see if INEC, of course, will allow that. And of course, remember your party logo and candidates, and remember to not sell your vote. We're having conversations this morning about politicians and the reason for the cash scarcity being that the government is trying to limit the amount of money politicians have to buy votes. But it's shocking that Nigerians still will be considering selling their votes in 2023, seeing what the country has been through in the last few years. I do not expect that there will be so much of it, and I'm hoping that Nigerians are wiser in 2023. But of course, thanks very much to Bolahon Olejide for your time this morning. It's very interesting conversations with you,
Nice to be
as
here.
always. And we'll see where this leads in the next few weeks. Now.